Hello, I'm Geoff from Sevenoaks Driving Lessons. If you're feeling nervous, unsure, or even a bit overwhelmed about learning to drive, you're absolutely not alone. Most people feel exactly the same way at the start, and that's completely normal. What matters is that you have the right support. I'm a fully qualified driving instructor, born and raised in Sevenoaks, and I'm known for a calm, patient, and professional approach that helps people learn to drive safely and with confidence. Many of my pupils come to me initially feeling anxious or lacking confidence and go on to pass their driving test feeling genuinely ready, not just lucky. Testament to this is over 70% of my pupils pass their driving test compared to the average in Sevenoaks of just 53%. That means you're nearly a third more likely to pass your test if you're taught by me. Interestingly, because the way I teach, most of my pupils need far fewer lessons than the national average. I'll explain how later in the video. I was also proud to be named Kent's Best Local Driving Instructor at the 2025 Automotive Awards based on consistent 5-star Google reviews and strong pass rates. And for parents' peace of mind, I'm fully DBS checked. In this video, I'll explain how my lessons work, what makes them different, and how I help learners build real skills and confidence without unnecessary stress or pressure. I'll also share one simple tip later that will save people money on their driving lessons. And if at any point you're unsure whether I'm right for you, you're always welcome to get in touch and have a quick chat. So I'm lucky to teach a wide variety of drivers. That includes people who've never sat in the driver's seat before, or those who feel anxious or have had a bad experience elsewhere. And then there are learners who are nearly test ready but need proper mock tests and final preparation. I also work with people who perhaps have taken a break from driving and need to rebuild their confidence. And I work with experienced overseas drivers who want to learn to drive on the correct side of the road. And I'm also trusted to teach other driving instructors, celebrities, sports personalities, and royalty, because they all appreciate my professionalism, discretion, and reliability. Regardless of how much experience a driver has, they all meet me within the immediate Sevenoaks area to get the most value from lessons. If you're slightly outside that area, that's not a problem, but you may need to come to me. I can usually meet you somewhere convenient, such as Sevenoaks train station or another agreed location within town. Keeping lessons centred around Sevenoaks isn't just about convenience for me. It means we're not wasting the first 20 minutes of your lesson travelling into a practice area, which would effectively turn part of your paid lesson into a taxi journey. It also helps me stay on time for the next pupil, which is one of the reasons I'm so reliable. If you're unsure whether your location works, just send me a message and I'll happily advise. Now, one of the most common questions I get asked is whether to learn in a manual or an automatic car. And the good news is that I teach in both, so whatever you decide, you're supported. But it's important you make that decision with all the facts. You see, if your priority is passing first time, keeping costs down, and having the widest choice of cars, then learning in a manual is still, for most people, the smarter option. But what I do need to clear up is a common misconception that a manual gearbox is difficult to learn. You see, coordination, clutch control, and gear changes are skills, not talents. And when they're taught properly, they're far less intimidating than people initially expect. I've taught learners with dyslexia, ADHD, autism, and other neurodivergent profiles who've gone on to become excellent manual drivers. Ultimately though, the right choice is the one that suits you. I strongly recommend manual gearboxes for most learners, but I'm equally happy to teach automatic if that's the right fit for your situation. Now, I'd just like to give a quick bit of context about my background because it explains how I teach and why my pupils do so well. Uniquely, before becoming a driving instructor, I spent years racing cars across the UK and Europe, winning 2 UK championships. But don't worry, I'm not here to turn anyone into a racing driver, and I certainly don't promote speed. If anything, racing taught me the opposite. It taught me about the importance of observation, planning, discipline, and calm decision making, and a healthy respect for how quickly things can go wrong when those are missing. Alongside that, I ran successful businesses, studied at Oxford University, and coached sports teams up to an Olympic level. The common thread through all that work is learning how to break complex skills down into simple, manageable steps, and helping people perform consistently even under pressure. That's exactly what learning to drive requires. Not just knowing what to do, but being able to do it calmly and confidently when it really matters, including on test day. And as a father, I'm also very aware that learning to drive is a huge milestone for families. Parents don't just want their son or daughter to scrape through a test, they want them to be safe, confident, and properly prepared for real world driving. And finally, a small local detail: I was born and raised in Sevenoaks, and I took my own driving test here too. So I know the area, the roads, and the pressures of test day. Moving on, there are 3 key reasons why people love to learn driving with me. The first is the environment that I create in the car. I know that most people learn best when they feel safe, supported, and in a positive environment. So you'll find I'm calm, patient, and respectful always. I'm firm when it matters because naturally safety matters. But I'm never sharp, I'll never make you feel stupid, and you won't dread getting in the car. Another unique advantage about learning with me is that I sit in the back of almost every one of my pupils' driving tests. I choose to do this because it gives me first-hand, up-to-date insights into how driving tests are actually being marked. For example, I hear the examiner's feedback, see where faults are picked up, and understand what really makes the difference on test day. These insights feed directly back into how I teach, how I run mock tests, and how I prepare pupils. That's why my pupils go into test day knowing what to expect, not hoping for the best. Alongside that, I use something that most learners simply don't have access to: video analysis of real driving tests in Sevenoaks. These are detailed walkthroughs where I explain what to look for, where people commonly pick up faults, and what local examiners are actually assessing. This approach comes directly from my background in motor racing, where reviewing video footage is one of the most powerful ways to improve performance. Used alongside your lessons, these videos give you a level of preparation most learners never get. They allow you to quickly revisit tricky situations in your own time, remove uncertainty, and turn unfamiliar roads into familiar ones. So when test day comes, it feels far less daunting. It's for these reasons and many more that my learners need around 33% fewer lessons than the DVSA national average. That saves a huge amount of time and money. Talking of time, let's talk about lesson duration, frequency, and what I recommend. I usually offer 1 hour and 90-minute lessons. 1 hour works well when time is tight and it keeps things ticking over. But 90 minutes is the sweet spot for most learners. It gives us enough time to settle in, to work properly on a topic, and to make real progress without feeling rushed. It's also the most popular option because it's usually the best value in terms of progress per session. I typically don't recommend anything longer than 90 minutes. Otherwise, I find people become a bit frazzled and stop learning. In terms of frequency, once a week is fine, But if you want to see quicker progress, most learners find 2 or more lessons a week is ideal. However, I don't recommend trying to cram everything into a few days. That's because driving is a skill that improves with repetition, reflection, and sleep. Your brain genuinely needs time to lock in what you've practiced. That's one reason intensive courses often disappoint. They compress too much into too little time, and learning simply doesn't stick. Helpfully, I offer lessons mornings, afternoons, evenings, and weekends. That's important because driving at different times leads to different conditions and congestion. Night lessons are particularly useful. They help improve anticipation, car control, and confidence. And many people actually find them calmer and more focused. But despite working such long hours, I do get booked up, especially at peak times. That's why booking ahead is always the safest option. And if you need a particular time, it's best to book me before someone else does. Most learners working exclusively with me need around 30 hours of training instead of the DVSA average of 45. That's a 33% reduction, not because I rush, but because I know how to make teaching stick. And if you're getting regular practice with your parents, that can bring it down even further to around 20 hours with me. If you're already fairly experienced and just need to brush up or run mock tests, some people only need about 12 hours. And if you're a parent watching this and wondering why the DVSA now recommends more lessons than you remember, it's simply because driving has got harder. The roads are far busier, junctions are more complex, and the standard expected on test is much higher than it was years ago. Modern driving tests focus far more on observation, judgment, and independent decision making, not just basic car control. So, while the number of lessons might feel higher than you expected, it simply reflects how much more demanding real world driving and the driving test has become. For that reason, my training follows 3 clear phases. First is instruction. This is where I explain things clearly, build strong foundations, and introduce new skills gradually. We start in the shallow end and then we build it up to a pace that suits you. Next comes coaching. I'll ask questions, encourage you to think ahead, and help you understand why you're doing things, not just how. And finally, there's the assessment. This is where I step back, I run realistic mock tests, and make sure you're genuinely ready. Not just to pass, but to drive safely on your own. Now, throughout all of this, mistakes are expected. If something feels hard at first, that doesn't mean you're not cut out for driving. It just means you're learning something new. Now, you might be wondering what car you'll be learning in. I've very deliberately chosen a modern Volkswagen Polo with dual controls, which are an essential training aid and dramatically improve safety. Overall, the car is a sensible size, has great all-round visibility, and is packed with safety and convenience features that genuinely support learning and make driving tests less stressful. Things like parking sensors and a reversing camera. One of the things I hear time and again from my pupils is how much easier my car feels compared to others they've driven. Some even say it feels almost like driving an automatic because it's so forgiving. In some cases, I'm also happy to teach pupils in their own car. Now, let me explain how booking works. I use a simple online diary where you can reserve lessons easily, a bit like booking a table at a restaurant. You can see my live availability, book sessions that suit you, and you'll automatically receive email and text reminders. If you do need to cancel, that's absolutely fine. I just ask for 48 hours notice. This gives another learner a fair chance to use the slot and keep everything running smoothly for everyone. What I would strongly encourage though is booking ahead. My diary fills up very quickly, especially at peak times like after school, evenings, weekends, and school holidays. Because of that, most parents book lessons months and in some cases even years in advance. So I'm already reserved for when their son or daughter turns 17. Most customers secure 20 to 30 90-minute lessons in advance. Doing that doesn't mean they're committed to using them all. It simply ensures you've got enough lesson slots reserved to become test ready without long gaps in training. Booking this way reduces stress, keeps progress consistent, and avoids the frustration of trying to find availability later on. I'd also advise not relying on cancellations. Demand is high, and when a slot does become available, it's often taken within minutes. So please remember to book me early. Once my diary is full, it really is full. Just get in touch and I'll send you a link to my diary. Now, the great thing is, once you've booked me, I'm reliable and take punctuality seriously. I also allow 30 minutes between each lesson. So if your lesson overruns due to traffic, or if I want to spend a bit longer on something important, I can do that without affecting the next person. It also means I've got time to refuel both myself and the car, so everyone's full of energy. When it comes to payment, you only need to pay at the start of each lesson. I don't ask for large upfront payments or block bookings. This means you stay in control at all times with no financial risk and no long-term commitment. Reassuringly, the price you see is the price you pay. There are no booking fees and no surprise charges. While some driving schools may offer introductory bulk deals, I've found that many learners and parents prefer flexibility and clarity, especially when schedules change or progress varies from person to person. So whilst talking about money, that leads me to the top tip I mentioned earlier, one that can genuinely help you learn faster and spend less overall on driving lessons. Once you have learned the foundations such as proper car control and safe junction work, having access to a family car for private practice can make a big difference. This isn't about replacing professional lessons. It's about reinforcing what's already been taught, building confidence between sessions and gaining more experience interacting with real traffic in everyday situations. Used at the right time, private practice helps learning stick and can reduce the number of paid lessons needed. But the key word here is timing. Practicing too early can unintentionally introduce some shaky habits. But practicing at the right stage with clear guidance on what to practice and what not to can speed up progress dramatically. And don't worry if the family car is an automatic, while lessons with me are in a manual. Yes, the first time switching back, you might forget clutch at a stop or sit in first gear a little longer than needed. That's completely normal. But after a couple of corners, muscle memory kicks in and you're right back into it. The same goes for driving a different size car. If the family car is narrower or feels different, we simply take a few moments to adjust. Learning how to judge space and feel the difference between different vehicles is actually a valuable real-world skill and one that makes you a more adaptable, confident driver in the long run. Used properly, private practice complements professional instruction beautifully. It reinforces good habits, builds confidence faster, and helps ensure lessons are focused on progress, not repetition. Now, if you're a parent watching this, I completely understand the temptation to start teaching your son or daughter to drive straight away. It feels helpful, it feels proactive, and it comes from the right place. Unfortunately, though, what I see time and again is that starting too early without the right structure can unintentionally set habits that later have to be unpicked. You see, driving standards and expectations have changed significantly over the years, often in ways that surprise many parents. Many of us were taught to rely heavily on the handbrake, or to move neatly up and down through every gear, or to avoid crossing the hands when steering. But those techniques are either used very differently or not at all. What once felt correct can actually now work against a learner on their driving test. That's why my recommendation is simple. Let me build the foundations first. Those early lessons are where confidence is formed, habits are set, and your son or daughter's relationship with driving really begins. Once those foundations are in place, any practice you do at home becomes far more effective because you're reinforcing the latest techniques, not unintentionally contradicting them. I'd also really encourage you to stay engaged with your son or daughter's learning. When they come back from a lesson, don't just ask, "How was it?" Instead, ask, "What did you learn today?" Or ask them to explain something back to you or show you a diagram that we've used. This helps because when someone can teach you, they're going to learn twice, and it gives you a genuine insight into how they're progressing. It's also important to maintain continuity with professional lessons. Without regular professional input, standards can drift, and I often see lessons spent rebuilding habits rather than moving forward. One structured lesson a week keeps everything aligned and ensures steady progress. Finally, it's worth acknowledging the emotional side of teaching someone to drive, because teaching your own child to drive can be surprisingly difficult. Parents know their children best. They also remember all the mistakes they've made growing up, which is exactly why emotions can run high when something goes wrong behind the wheel. The challenge is that teaching someone to drive requires calm, measured decision making. But without dual controls, you're relying entirely on your son or daughter to get everything right. And that can feel frightening for everyone. Unfortunately, if a parent feels anxious, frustrated, or on edge, even subtly, that tension is immediately picked up by the learner. Confidence drops, mistakes increase, and what should be an exciting milestone can quickly become stressful. Some parents discover, quite understandably, that they're simply not cut out for teaching driving, especially when they don't have any physical control over the car. That's one of the reasons so many driving instructors actually ask me to teach their own children. It's not about ability, it's about separation and creating the right emotional environment for learning. So don't worry if you're not mentally ready to sit in the passenger seat. Many parents feel the same way. Overall, I hope this video has helped give you a better sense of what I offer and how I work. The next best step is to get in touch and book a 90-minute lesson to start with, because it gives us enough time to really get into things without feeling rushed. If you've got any questions before booking, I'm always happy to have a quick chat. No pressure, no obligations, just to see if we're a good fit. Thanks very much for watching, and I look forward to helping you learn to drive here in Sevenoaks.